Welcome everyone to this vigil in solidarity with International Overdose Awareness Month. And in fact, today is International Overdose Awareness Day. My name is Ryan, and I'm one of the pastors at High Rock Church here in town, and I'm a co-president of the Needham Interfaith Clergy Association, along with Pastor Katie Scudera from the Unitarian Universalist Society. And it's my privilege to serve as your MC. Thank you for coming. We have a program of just around a half an hour. We're going to try to slip in at under half an hour. And then after the vigil, as I said, you're free to linger. There's information. There are people here to connect with. And so it's a beautiful night. You can linger afterwards. I'd like to ask that for the time being, any of you who received a little purple candle, which should be, somebody's walking around distributing those. If you received a little purple candle, please keep it turned off, because later in the vigil, we're going to turn them on together at the same time. We're going to wait for the sun to get a little bit lower, and it'll be a profound effect when we do it all together. So if you haven't received one, somebody's walking around with those, or there's a box. We want to distribute those as speakers are going on. But now I would like to introduce to you the event organizer, Needham resident, co-founder, and president of the Becca Schmill Foundation, Deb Schmill. Will you please come forward?
Welcome for being here tonight. I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for coming out tonight to remember those lost to overdose in our community and beyond. In 2021, Massachusetts lost 2,290 lives to overdose, and 108,000 lives were lost in the entire U.S. to overdose. That's approximately 300 per day, and double the overdose rate from 2015. Overdose deaths have rapidly increased for the past 6 years due to the mixing of deadly synthetic opioids such as fentanyl into counterfeit pills and illicit street drugs. Adding to this growing threat is the ease of purchasing drugs online. Social media apps have become the primary place to buy drugs. This has allowed dealers to target children online 24/7 and has resulted in teens now being the fastest growing group of overdose victims. But even before we had easy access to poisonous drug supply, our country was in crisis. A crisis where the victims were, and still are, misunderstood, mistreated, and marginalized, often accused of being weak or immoral, despite the fact that they suffer from a brain disease that no one is immune to. Each of us is vulnerable to the risks, such as having an accident and being prescribed pain medication, or a genetic predisposition, or a mental health struggle, or in the case of my forever 18-year-old daughter, Becca, the impact of trauma. So as we gather to remember those lost to overdose in the past, let's also make a commitment to those who are living with substance use disorders in the present. A commitment to make acceptance, inclusion, kindness, and compassion the values we choose to prioritize in our communities and in our schools. As Coretta Scott King once said, quote, "The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members," end quote. In that vein, I thank you all again for your presence tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Deb. I'd like to invite my colleagues from the Needham Interfaith Clergy Association to make their way forward. And first, I'd like to have Pastor Katie give a land acknowledgement before we move on.
Good evening, everyone. We gather tonight with grief and rage in our hearts at the ongoing addiction and overdose crisis in our nation, and our hearts are heavy with death and trauma from both modern and historic injustices and violence. Tonight, we acknowledge that this land on which European colonists built the town of Needham is the territory of the Massachusetts and Pawtucket, who have stewarded this land for countless generations. We acknowledge part of the wealth and longevity of this town is from land theft and the enslavement of African peoples in our early history. We acknowledge repeated violations of political, cultural, and bodily sovereignty against Indigenous and African heritage people in our town, region, and nation. We extend our respect and apologies to all descendants of those who suffered due to the colonization and enslavement of our town, and as we commit ourselves to the difficult work of ending the addiction crisis in our town and nation, we also pledge our hearts and our spirits to the work of repair in our town's relationship with Indigenous and African heritage residents and neighbors. May this be so.
Thanks, Pastor Katie. I'm just going to wait a minute for that train. We gather this evening coming from many backgrounds and worldviews and spiritual traditions, and I'd like to set aside a moment for you to connect with a higher power in prayer. And if you're not a praying person, I appreciate your support of those of us who are for this moment. And so many of us here have turned to a power greater than ourselves, whether God or a higher power as we've come to understand it, in the midst of struggle and grief or recovery. So I'd like to set aside just a moment for you to pray quietly now, and after that I'll invite you to join in the Serenity Prayer. So take 30 seconds now quietly. And now together we say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Amen. And now I'd like to invite Sachi Singh, a senior at Needham High School and a member of the Needham High School Salsa program, which is students advocating life without substance abuse, to come forward and share. Thank you, Sachi.
Hi, I'm Sachi, and the flags you see on display here represent the 2,290 lives lost to overdose in Massachusetts in 2021. They were cherished mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, sisters, brothers, uncles, neighbors, friends, and aunts. They were loved and they're missed beyond belief. We have red flags available tonight for anyone who would like to write the name of their loved one lost to overdose and add it to the display. Please see the table with flags and markers.
Thank you, Sachi. It's a privilege to have two special guests to share some reflections tonight. And first, I'd like to introduce Nick Rand of the Greater Boston Addiction Centers. He personally understands the struggle to overcome addiction, and aside from his own recovery, he's dedicated his life to helping others succeed in their recovery through his work at Greater Boston Addiction Center and in his spare time. So welcome, Nick. How tall are you? 6'3". Thanks, Nick.
Can you all hear me? All right, my name's Nick. I am an alcoholic and a drug addict. I wish I had 20 or 30 minutes to share my whole story, but unfortunately I do not. But it is an honor and a privilege to be here this evening and be here tonight. I never thought I'd be in a position to even speak in front of a crowd like this, or even to be fortunate enough and be blessed enough to be asked to speak in a crowd like this. And if you ask my mother 4 or 5 years ago, I would not be standing here today, but due to my higher power and the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm here to spread some experience, strength, and hope. Having said that, I struggled with addiction my entire life. I was actively using pot at the age of 12, and I didn't get sober until I was 30 years old. I was in and out of treatment my entire life, and I could never get it, and I never understood why I couldn't get it. And I tried every which way to get it. I tried moving, I tried different MAT, and nothing ever worked for me. I could stay abstinent, right? But I never realized it was changing my behaviors and how I treat people and the way I look at life. And like today, like due to the 12 steps, due to my higher power, I dedicate my life to taking people through the big book and seeing a change in men that was once as hopeless as I was, get their families back and be of service to other men, because that's what this is all about. And like, I work in this field, and every single day I have phone. My phone goes off every single day, nonstop, talking to loved ones, people calling my phone, asking to come into treatment, how I can help them. And like my life is this, and that's what service work is. That's what the 12 steps have done for me, is to go through them and help another alcoholic and a drug addict. Because as drug addicts, we don't realize like that we are hurting our families the most. That's what we don't realize. In active addiction, I didn't care who I was hurting. And still, after almost 3 years sober, I still don't have my children in my life today. I still don't have a relationship with my family today. And I'm content with that. I'm at peace with that. This is my journey. And like when God sees fit and when the universe sees fit, like one day everything will collide. And if I stay clean and sober and do the next right thing, I'll be able to be there and be of service to my children and be part of my family. Like I said, it's an absolute blessing. I never in my entire life thought I'd be standing here, because at the age of 17, I kept telling myself I'd be happy if I lived till I'm 22. You know, and like here I am, and like it's a blessing to see everyone here. Granted, like it's overdose awareness, and like it's just a sad thing, and like there's a way out. And like if you told me that 164 pages could save my life years ago, my ego and my pride probably would have said no, like a book isn't gonna save my life. But like, you know what? It saved my life. It put people in my life that like love me today, that call on me, that check in on me, ask how I'm doing, and like. It's a blessing to be part of that and be fortunate enough to like see the world through like a different lens. It really is. And like that sounds cliche, but like every day I wake up and every night I go to bed, I know I didn't hurt anybody. I know I didn't lie. I know I didn't cheat. I know I didn't steal. And like I'm content and I'm happy with self. And like if anyone has any questions, concerns, anything, our table is over there. My staff is here. I'm here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. So thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, Nick, so much. Our other guest tonight is Linda Rosenberg of Learn to Cope. Linda was first introduced to Learn to Cope in 2011 when she was seeking support to cope with her daughter, who had been suffering with substance use disorder. She has since become an impassioned advocate for policy reform and a speaker and a Learn to Cope facilitator and a personal mentor and confidant for others who are suffering. So welcome, Linda. Please come.
Is that good? Great. Whoa. Thank you, Debbie, for inviting me to speak on behalf of Learn to Cope tonight. Good evening. As I said, I'm Linda Rosenberg, and I am honored to be sharing this important night with all of you. Having lived in Needham for over 30 years, where my husband and I raised all three of our grown children, standing here tonight brings back many wonderful memories. From the infamous 4th of July fireworks to the countless sporting events on this very field, never did I think or imagine I'd be standing here tonight speaking at an overdose awareness vigil. Fortunately for our family, our story is one of success and recovery. It is through organizations such as Learn to Cope that helped my family find the light in the darkness, the strength when we felt defeated. I'm hopeful that this event will bring awareness, a level of awareness, to this community, as nobody is immune from the disease of addiction. Nothing safeguards you against addiction. Not a loving family, wealth, faith, age, intelligence, wisdom, no willpower. Addiction is not discriminatory. Learn to Cope is a support group that was created in 2004 by our fearless leader, Joanne Peterson. She found herself struggling with a family member's addiction and didn't know where to turn. She started a very small meeting in a local high school for families who found themselves with little help, answers, or resources. From this organic beginning, Learn to Cope has grown into a registered nonprofit with 27 chapters throughout Massachusetts, a chapter in Florida, and a private online forum that supports over 11,000 registered members. Whether it be at an in-person or Zoom meeting or conversation on our online forum, families receive unique support and education from peers and great professionals who bring hope to those who feel they have nowhere else to turn. At each meeting and on the forum, individuals gain a wealth of knowledge from others that often comes from experiences they have had in their own family or those from members who often become lifelong friends. Many times, families come to our meetings broken and leave a bit stronger. At each meeting, our trained facilitators help support and strengthen our members. They learn strategies which sometimes result in long-term recovery for their loved ones. We are extremely proud that Learn to Cope has collaborated with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health to become the first parent network in the country to offer the overdose reversal antidote Narcan, nasal naloxone, to all of our members, saving hundreds of lives. On a personal note, I walked into my first Learn to Cope meeting 10 years ago, not knowing what to expect. I was a little nervous that I would know somebody, so I traveled to Quincy, where I was certain I wouldn't know a soul, and I didn't. Walking into that room, standing room only, I became more accepting of my reality, realizing I wasn't alone. So I began finding meetings that were more local to me. It wasn't too long after that I found my family right here in the Metro West. We support each other by sharing our experiences, wisdom, strength, resources, and most importantly, hope. Last month, I was asked by the Today Show to share my family's story on their online Parents Edition. Without giving it a second thought, I accepted the invitation. To me, if going public with our story and our struggles meant it would help even one family break the stigma, we would have accomplished what we intended. My family was taken aback by the number of emails, texts, and messages we received from folks who have yet to feel comfortable sharing their personal stories and struggles, and commented to us about our bravery in sharing. But I can't say I was surprised. Addiction affects everyone. Someone, however, did say to me, "How'd you feel about airing your dirty laundry?" My response was, "That wasn't dirty laundry, that was my life." So for anyone struggling here with a loved one's substance use, please note, we are here and you are not alone. No one should have to suffer in silence. If you'd like more information about Learn to Cope, please stop by. We're right back there. We can listen. We have a lot of information, and we'll just say hello. Again, Debbie, thank you for inviting us tonight.
Before the vigil draws to a close, we're going to spend a few moments pausing to remember and to grieve and to honor the lives of those lost this past year to overdose. Each of those flags is a person. It may have been someone close to you. They're not just numbers in a data set. They are flesh and blood who we miss dearly and who we can never forget. And so with that electric candle that you received and patiently kept turned off, have they been distributed? Hopefully they're all out. I apologize. We didn't have enough to give every single person one. So it's good to have such a big crowd, but I apologize. We don't have as many. But for everyone who has one, this is going to serve as a glimmer of hope tonight, the glimmer of life in each person who lost their life to overdose, the glimmer of light that is their memory every day, the glimmer of hope that together we can prevent more deaths from overdose, and the glimmer of light that recovery and health is possible, and that we want Needham to be a place where folks can experience that. So I'm going to invite you to observe just a brief moment of silence in memory of the lives lost. And then midway through that moment of silence, I'll cue you to illuminate the candles. And if there's a name of someone that you've lost, I invite you to speak their name out loud, even if it's just a whisper, as you turn on your candle. We honor those we've lost, and we declare that together we will work to spread light and spread hope and spread prevention and spread recovery. So our moment of silence begins now. Now I invite you to lift your candle, turn it on, and speak someone's name if you have a name. We remember, we honor, we grieve for those lost, and we look forward to hope that we can be a part of something beautiful and powerful in the recovery of other people. Just want to say a few words of thanks to everyone who came out. And just before we do that, as a reminder, there will be folks from Learn to Cope, the Becca Schmill Foundation, the Needham Public Health Division, and the Greater Boston Addiction Centers lingering for you to connect with. They have resources for grief, recovery, treatment, support, as well as harm reduction resources, including Narcan and fentanyl test strips. I want to thank all of the organizations who partnered to plan this event, the volunteers, the various departments throughout the town of Needham, the Needham Select Board, who issued a formal declaration of solidarity with this event, our special guests, everyone who pitched in, to each of you coming out to show your support, and especially Deb Schmill, our organizer, leader, and inspiration. Thank you, Deb. And Deb, you would like to come forward and just say a few closing words for us?
I just wanted to echo those words of thanks. So many people came out and volunteered, helped put out the flags. So many town organizations pitched in to make this possible, and thank you to our select board members who are here today. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you too.
Thank you so much, Deb. So please feel free to linger, but this concludes our program, and peace to you as you go, and blessings of good health and hope. Amen. Thank you.